Hey, it's Nick, it's Judge Phil. We are back from High Plains Raceway outside of Denver, Colorado, where we had our first of 2 races for the 2021 season. Now, in Lemons, we often get rookies asking us what is a good kind of car to run in Lemons, and one of the cars that always pops up, Ford Crown Victoria. Cheap, durable, reasonably fast, reasonably good handling. Some teams take us up on it. At this race, many teams took us up on it. We had no fewer than 4 Crown Vics, which outnumbered BMW 3 Series and made up 7% of the entire field. Way back in the day, Judge Phil, he had his own personal street P71 Crown Vic that we used for the Ghost Ride the Whip penalty. We love Crown Vics. Definitely bring one.
We get a lot of teams from West Texas in our Colorado races, and one of our favorites is the Geezer Escort Service, though they're no longer called that. They're simply just the Geezers. These gentlemen have a lot of life experience and racing experience, if you know what I mean, and I think you do.
And they really are geezers. Those motherfuckers old.
Well, these guys had a Ford Escort, hence the Escort Service name, and it was pretty fast and they're good drivers, but they decided they'd beat the system by getting the greatest race car ever made, the BMW E30, with predictable results.
Carry on, I'm just documenting this moment.
Hella sweet, as always, the Resistance in their first-gen Civic wagon. Notably, the most successful first-gen Civic in Lemons history. It's maybe the only one. Anyway, Colorado altitude knocked their peak horsepower down from 54 to 12. Whatever, car's awesome, hella sweet.
Salty Thunder Racing, by far the most successful Fiero team in Lemons history, has been doing this bum wine tasting at every Colorado Lemons race for quite a while. They get every horrible flavor of bum wine, they have nasty hors d'oeuvres to eat with your bum wine, and people are puzzled but generally enjoy it.
Okay, and meanwhile, there's a brand new Lemons team. This was their debut race, but prior to showing up, they had watched a whole bunch of Lemons on YouTube, and from doing that, they learned about the bum wine tasting. And without telling Salty Thunder or anybody else, they decided their entire theme would be bum wine. And they dress up their Volkswagen Golf complete with hand-painted bum wine art and custom 3D printed badges for the car. It was spectacular.
So one sort of car that we really like to have in Lemons is the sort of car that we always have to rent when we travel to races. We're talking fleet-grade mid-sized sedans of the sort that only fleets buy. You know, Nissan Altima, we got the Dodge Avenger, and of course there's the Chevy Malibu. Perfectly adequate transportation. Why don't we have more of these in the races? I don't know. They're incredible to see, they're cheap, parts are easy to get, and here's this team that showed up with a 2000 Chevy Malibu that had the abrasive interior that had been vomited on by 1,000 customers, everything you can imagine. And they showed up with this car. We were very happy to see it. We were sure it was going to run away with the race, but it failed miserably right away. Sorry, guys. Jan of Jan Bon Jovi and the Misfits, who did this excellent theme, is a man from the Netherlands who misspent his entire youth going to car shows and going to press events when he could and reading the stuff that people like me wrote. I feel kind of bad for him, but he seems to have enjoyed it. In fact, he enjoyed it so much that for his new theme, the team took their Honda CR-V race car and they turned it into an automotive press launch masterpiece, complete with velvet rope, press releases, press materials, a commemorative poster, and even special IDs on correct Mugen lanyards. Overall, it captured everything about an automotive press event except the indescribable tedium. Well done.
Longtime Lemons racer Jerry Ringel's Inglorious Bastards team, these guys are long suffering. They raced for years with a mostly hopeless Thunderbird. Finally said, screw it, we're getting a cheating Miata, give us all the penalty laps, we don't care, we just want track time. You'll never guess what happened next. Well, Jerry being the good guy that he is, after his Miata blew up in 17 different ways, the team from CU, bunch of university kids, they also had a Miata. It blew out its suspension. Jerry let these kids cannibalize his dead Miata for the suspension parts. That was hella sweet. Speaking of university teams, the CU team has raced in Lemons for several years, but this was the debut event for a team from the Colorado School of Mines Engineering School. Somehow, they convinced the school to give them actual academic credit for running in Lemons, but there's something to that. Brad Stolz, a Lemons racer and also School of Mines alumni, he says, I learned just as much engineering-wise from running Lemons as I ever did in school. So, you know what? I'm an alumni of School of Mines. I'm racing in Lemons. I'm going to sponsor these kids' entire team. And he did. He helped them find a terrible field-find BMW, helped them out with all their registration. So that was really cool by Brad. Kids had a great time and put on a great show.
I like to get press cars loaned by the car companies to bring to these races because they're handy to have. And what I really wanted was a nice Chrysler Pacifica minivan. What I got instead, when I called up the guys at the Dodge Brothers, Chrysler Corporation, Daimler Chrysler, FCA, AMC Jeep Renault, Stellantis for the loan, and they didn't have a Pacifica. What they had was a Durango. And this is a 710 horsepower midsize SUV that weighs, maybe about 7,000 pounds. So what I decided to do was make a penalty appropriate to this vehicle, which was the Hellcat air guitar penalty. Thanks, Chrysler.
We got a good bribe at this race. The DAE team made us a modified version of the classic Guess Who board game called Guess Hoopty. As you guys know, the original Guess Who is a series of people's faces, and you ask your opponent, does your person have a mustache? Does your person wear glasses? And this team had replaced all of the little faces with makers of automobiles. And so you had to ask them things like, is your company known for selling a captive import made by Isuzu? And it was a great bribe and turned into a great penalty. All right, I don't know whether this is hella sweet or but terrible, but we had what was probably the millionth Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am theme in Lemons. Over the years, we've seen countless screaming chickens, cowboy hats, cases of Coors, all the Smokey and the Bandit stuff. This time, the aptly named Smokey and the Bandits, they gave that treatment to their Miata. Now, at this point, we're really not sure. Do we never want to see another Bandit theme ever again? Or do we make it a rule that every team must do a Bandit theme? Now, we've mentioned this many times for these HPR races. It's become a tradition. 3 Under Par Racing, they bring their entire wood-fired pizza oven setup to each race and feed the entire paddock. It is so incredibly hella sweet.
Back in the early days of Lemons, that was pretty soon after the new Mini made its debut in the United States, and everyone thought, ooh, Cooper Works S, they're incredible, they're supercharged. And it turns out, nope, it's actually a really pretty terrible, unreliable car in Lemons, and we've really relaxed our attitude about busting with penalty laps. So when this team showed up with our nasty, wretched, early Cooper S with an automatic, it was instant Class C, no arguments. The team was a little surprised, and of course, it blew up. Normally, we don't worry too much about who wins the classes in these recaps because you had to be at the race to see it happen. But in this case, the Class C winner really won our hearts. This is a team from Minnesota, where I started out, and they brought us Grain Belt beer, which takes me back to my childhood days of cracking up a Grain Belt at age 6. They started racing many years ago in the Midwest with a G-body Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Brougham, which eventually they crashed. And what did they do to replace it but get yet another G-body Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme Brougham? Incredible car, Oldsmobile 307 power.
This is an Oldsmobile 307. No shit.
Plus, they had a great Super Mario Brothers theme and they stayed in costume all weekend.
But terrible is this poor bunch of bastards from Team Virtual Reality 6. Now, these are all Audi dealership techs. They know their Audis. And because of that, they know, don't worry about Quattro, don't worry about turbocharging. All that stuff is going to do is cause you problems. They got a front-wheel drive Audi 90, put in a naturally aspirated V6, promptly won a Lemons race. Now, this generated a bit of a problem for them because they won the race. That car was going to be in Class A forever. They didn't necessarily want to go through all the hoops that you need to go through to try to win overall. They're like, you know what? We're going to take the same car, we're going to make it worse and have them class us down in Class B. How do we make a V6 front-wheel drive Audi worse? Well, you pick any number of engines from the long list of Volkswagen Audi engines that are worse. And in this case, they chose the Volkswagen VR6. Now, instead of just getting some old used VR6 and slapping it in, they figured, oh, well, we might try to tune this thing up a little bit. Oh, hey, look, we've got some ARP head bolts over there. Let's use that. And of course, they forgot to torque the head bolts down properly immediately, blew head gasket, totally fried the cylinder head, had to go get another used motor. They made some Franken motor out of the parts. They fired it up. It's spraying coolant out between the block and the cylinder head. They figured, I don't know what to do now. We're just gonna torque everything down to like 9,000 pound-feet. Somehow that kind of worked, and they finished the race. Now that they've done Class A and Class B, obvious next step, go out and get a 73 Audi 100 LS, dominate Class C.
So speaking of teams that want to beat the system, Why Would You Do That Racing has this Chevy Chevette into which they have transplanted a Volvo turbo engine. And it has been very, very unreliable. And so the way to fix that has always been add more boost. They have added a boost controller that you activate by touching a button on the gear shift knob. It is called Chevette Turbo Push to Pass. And when it kicks in, reality gets different, yo.
Push to pass, just kicked in, yo! And here's the button.
Oh, sorry.
All right, on to the awards. I Got Screwed went to Taco Tuesday Motorsports. Colorado is the Subaru state. Says so right on the license plates. We always get our fair share of Subarus at the HPR races, and this team thought they had found one that was better than all that had come before. We found a pretty solid 99 Forester, all-wheel drive with a manual transmission. They could only come to one conclusion: we have beaten the system. Well, maybe the system beating still needs a little work because their engine blew up right away, first day. They went over, because it's Colorado, there's Subarus everywhere. They found some junkyard called Sketchy Saito's Subaru sarcophagus, whatever it was called, immediately found a motor. Guy says, hell yeah, we got an EJ25, it's in perfect condition. They went and got it, swapped it into their Subaru, it ran for 15 minutes, blew up, they got screwed.
We like to see it when teams bring their Lemons rally cars, cage them, and make them into Lemons race cars. Doesn't happen all that often, but DAE Racing in Denver did just that with this Porsche 944. And then, of course, it blew up the transaxle right away. And we've seen a lot of Porsche transaxle work. Typically, the most skilled Porsche mechanics in the world will take about 16 hours to swap one. These guys swore they could do it faster, and I don't know how, but they went into town, got another transmission out of a storage unit, came back, installed it in about 3 or 4 hours. It was absolutely amazing, and we were floored by this. These are the best Porsche mechanics in the galaxy. Then, of course, the clutch failed, and the clutch is nowhere near the transaxles, so this is an even more difficult job. And eventually, they gave up on trying to make that work and just drove with it stuck in third gear for the rest of the race. Completely heroic, but also kind of screwed by choosing a Porsche. The only thing that we like better than ill-advised engine swaps are ill-advised engine swaps that use strange hardware from the outer fringes of the vast General Motors empire. Now, this team, the Gun Barrel Cobras, had been racing for a while with a Volvo 940 equipped with a Toyota 1UZ V8 swap with paddle shift transmission and tri-power triple carburetor intake. It was absolutely amazing, but their second car, the Toyota Starlet, just never had the power they wanted. So they went to the junkyard with a tape measure, and they decided they would beat the system. And beat the system they certainly did, because the engine they chose was the V6 out of a Suzuki Grand Vitara.
Introducing the all-new Suzuki Grand Vitara.
They put this engine in. They decided that fuel injection and electronic ignition are just too complicated. So they put in a carburetor and a belt drive points distributor. That doesn't mean these guys lack respect for high-tech electronics, but they focused all their love for that stuff in the driver's compartment.
The special award for this race went to an activity that we certainly don't like to see, but it had a happy ending, so we figured we'd honor them. The special award was called the Roll Cage Testing Contest First Place. Now, a little background on this. This is deferred maintenance racing. This is their Isuzu-built 78 Chevy Love, into which they have swapped a 4.3 V6. The Chevy Love, of course, was sold all over the world with different nameplates. In Thailand, it was called the Isuzu Faster. Somehow these guys got onto some kind of Asian eBay and got Faster badges for it. But that was really the appetizer for the main course, which is, of course, their incredible paint job based on the Bigfoot monster truck, and instead of Bigfoot, it was Big Font. Now we're getting into the sad part and why these guys got a trophy. The truck might not be the greatest handling vehicle of all time. In any case, a little bit of a squirrely moment combined with bad luck led to a 720-degree rollover. Now, again, we really hate to see this. Keeping the driver safe is the #1 priority in Lemons, and that's why we have all of these strict safety rules, and these guys followed those rules to a T. Their roll cage didn't move at all. The sheet metal on the roof was basically formed around the cage tubes like a pair of booty shorts. It was incredible. Guy walked away, no scratches, was just bummed that he had wrecked the truck, so we had to give him an award. Roll Cage Testing Contest, first place.
Texas Pinto racer Tommy Salami, who actually races his very first car, this Ford Pinto wagon, came up to Colorado a few times from Texas, and romance blossomed between him and Jan Cole, whose very first car was a Chevy Vega. Now, as we know, the rivalry between the Pinto and the Vega was always fiery hot. Hotter even than an exploding Pinto. So, Jan actually managed to unearth her high school car and made it quite a competent race car, and the Vega motor was just dead. So they decided we need a 4-cylinder GM motor that's pretty spiritually close to what a Vega motor is all about, but that we can find. That turned out to be the Iron Duke. They put it in, they caged the car, they put in a fuel system, they did everything right, and unbelievably, for most first-time Lemons cars, this thing ran the whole time. That's very unusual for a car that start to finish got prepped and turned into a Lemons car right away. Organizer's choice, amazing car.
Okay, that takes us to the grand prize, the Index of Effluency. Now, normally you would think that an Iron Duke powered Vega that ran an entire Lemons weekend would run away with the IOE, and it was certainly in the conversation, but it was eclipsed by Caddy Daddy Racing. 50 horsepower diesel Volkswagen Caddy pickup, ran perfectly, 0 black flags, spent much of the weekend in the top 10 of the standings, and on top of all of that, the guy was Ironmanning it. For some reason, all of his teammates bailed out. He was doing a solo effort. He talked his pit neighbors into fueling for him while he went and got sandwich and bathroom breaks. He finished way up in the standings with a totally underpowered car with golf clubs in the back, so well-deserved IOE.
And now here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Toshi Fumiyaki. They never found his body.
I don't know what to do.
VR6. No shit.
I remember them telling us we're supposed to use dental dams. I've never seen one, but are they like a big, like an 8x10 condom or something? What are they?
No, they're saran wrap.
The only way I could really get aroused was to shove a glass rod up my urethra and then just beat it with a hammer.
Yeah. Remember they told us sex is death. Yeah, don't do it. I'm gonna snort Scotch Guard and break glass rods off of my urethra because Wang Chung told me to do it.
God, I haven't been to a baseball game since 2019. Apparently the Rockies are now about to... Oh, are you filming me, you...
Everybody have fun tonight!